Welcome, everybody, to this conversation of shaping the future of industries. We are delighted to have with us Bernard Chalès from Dassault Systems. Bernard, thank you for being with us. And
welcome.
We think of the future, and of course, this has been a very tumultuous time to be running a big business. So it almost behooves us to start with where you think things stand for your own company, having come through, as all companies have, a difficult period through a pandemic. How do you feel about where things are today? Are you looking beyond the pandemic? Are you still very much in that mode of, distributed work? Where are things for you?
Well, of course, that pandemic has been reshaping so many things around the world, and especially for the industries at large, all sectors of industries, manufacturing, healthcare, and so on. And, in some way, we are learning with our customers. Mm-hmm. As we provide them with a virtual platform to basically innovate, design, produce, manage logistics, we had to adapt ourselves to the way we recommended or we offered them to work in this constrained time. So we applied to ourselves what we recommended to them and vice versa. We learned from them what was necessary. And we had learned so much, I must say, in the last 18 months, in terms of course, working condition, convention to really set up the proper working environment. And I will not say it's positive because it would be inappropriate from all the negative impact of it, but from the sustainability, a more sustainable world, it has opened many, many new questions in terms of how much we should travel, how much we should use this video conferencing and other media to work, as well as really being more frugal and more lean in the way we communicate and work. So it's an hybridization between what we need to do for our customers, what we need to do with them, and what we need to do with our people. And I think it's probably a story for each of the companies that have been running their businesses.
So true. And as you say, so many of the challenges become opportunities. We, at the very beginning of this pandemic, if we all think back, of course, to March 2020, many of us thought it would be quite short, perhaps severe, but not a long-term change. And now we wrestle with this question of how much of the changes we've made will stay with us permanently. As a leader, how are you navigating that? And how do you take the feedback from customers or employees about which changes really work and which perhaps we can discard?
In the context of my company, we have always been in a very, I will say, special condition to reflect on those topics. Why so? Because basically we try to use the virtual world, the digitalization of the world, to try to create new type of products and solutions, whether it's airplanes, new mobility, cars, robots, you name them. So since day one, our job is to help our companies and ourselves to really work on really use the virtual world to increase and improve the way you do the real work in the real world. That's what we call the virtual twin environment for everything. It's for cities, for it's now for medicine, it's now for a vaccine. We can talk about that in a moment if you want. So that has been a reality. However, many years ago, it was difficult to convince companies that it was important to have a virtual twin of the way you operate your company. I learned a lot through the Fukushima terrible nuclear accident. In short, when the accident happened, nobody knew what to do. Would we have had a virtual Fukushima, we would have been able to plan the way to rescue. Without it, what do? You read documents, you read drawings, and you basically don't know what to do. So I'm used to say, if you want to rob a bank, which I don't recommend, if you want to rob a bank, you better need to know, like in great movies, all the details about it. This is what we call virtual twin. So now with this new situation, people have come to realize that it's very important to have a kind of dynamic image of the way your company is working, the way you do supply, the way you deliver product and services. And in some way, this is what Amazon has done in retail. It's happening to all industries now, not only to sell or establish customer relationship, but to engineer, imagine, produce, and deliver. So I will not say I'm happy with the pandemic. That would be absolutely unfair. But it creates a new preoccupation, a new sensitivity to resiliency, the importance of innovation for more sustainability. And I will say the frugal aspect of things to say, can we do the same or more with less? So that's what we are trying to apply to ourselves and, of course, provide solutions for our clients too.
So we all understand, because we've experienced it, whether we wanted to or not, most of us, enforced digitization. Whatever we were doing before, we are doing more of it. And many businesses, that was a big change, a big transformation, faster than they would have thought. And that does play, obviously, into some of what you're talking about. But make the distinction for us between virtualization and digitization, and how they fit together. But in terms of the customers that we're serving, and those that realize that they do, as you say, need to virtualize their business to understand it better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's an important point. Of course, digitalization is well understood by most of the people, including our kids, when they exchange, when they communicate, and so on, whether it's document, pictures, and videos. When you do virtualization, you basically try to mimic the reality. You try to have in a representative, accurate virtual world the way the plane is going to fly, the way it's going to take off, the way a car is going to work, the way a manufacturing plant is going to work, the way the vaccine, the Moderna vaccine or the BioNTech vaccine is going to work and is going to be produced. That's what we do. And there is a big difference between the two, which is basically the difference between a picture that shows you the result on how it works, the knowledge on know-how about how you do it, how you produce it. So this virtualization aspect has a virtue. It's a big transformation. I think it will accelerate in the world in all sectors. We have proof points with many clients today. You know, when you do virtualize the clinical trial, for example, on that you can set up 45,000 patient in a clinical trial in less than 6 weeks to really establish a very reliable protocol to really validate and test. That's virtualization. It's not document management in some way. And that's what we do. It's game changer because I think sustainable world will require to disassemble the current industries and reassemble in a different way. And this is happening everywhere. There is a massive evolution from supply to value and to resetting. What do I do as a company versus what do I source outside? And this new index of partition of the work is going to have a big impact on the future of the economy in each country.
And I'm going to ask you about sustainability because it's obviously going to play a big role in your future as well as in all of ours in the business world and elsewhere. But I want to just stay with healthcare for a moment because it's a big group for you. And there is this feeling that there was a real acceleration inside that sector globally about how to use technologies, and really, I think, a leapfrogging over of what might have been many, many years of holdout because it was such a, in some ways, antiquated sector. Have we arrived? Is it the very beginning of the kind of growth of virtualization or the use of 3D in healthcare? Where would you place it in terms of the opportunity that sector represents?
Well, the healthcare at large, with all actors, whether it's the pharma or the practitioner, in some way, I've used digitalization, but I've not really used or very little virtualization of their work. We have some showcases that we did with FDA years ago. For example, with what we call a Living Heart program, where we were able to show in the virtual world the real behavior of your heart, not anyone's heart, a personalized heart. And we were able, for example, in the Boston Hospital, Children's Hospital, they use the virtualization of the patient to really establish the right protocol when it comes to heavy surgery on heart. So it has been working on organs, bones, on organs, in a quite good way. And by the way, FDA consider that it's a big breakthrough for the future of those new practices, especially in surgery. When it comes now to smaller things, like the new molecules on the vaccines, with especially mRNA vaccines and the new technology, I think that the challenge here has been to reveal how derivative work could be done, how could it be quickly tested in a reliable way. Think, for example, that we've been able to do virtual patient population from big data analytics to compare real test case with the virtual one and validate on scope, risk and value of new vaccine. Think about setting up production systems so you can have a reliable way to produce the vaccine. All this has happened in the last 18 months at a new speed, thanks to the virtualization. Moderna did it, BioNTech, Pfizer did it, and many others, new players. So there is a proof point here that it's game changer for that sector. It has been a very rich sector. So they have not necessarily optimized everything. Like the automotive sector was really under tremendous competition for so many years. So when you see a Toyota production system, it's super optimized. When you see a production system for pharma, it's not optimized. But they are to address it now because of speed for delivery, with especially the pandemic situation. So it is accelerating the virtualization of the sector. There is no doubt on that, on clinical trial, on research, on modeling and simulation, big data analytics. I think it will be a positive impact overall for the progression on the reduce of cost of healthcare system, because as you know, especially in America, but everywhere, it's becoming a big concern for all states, And then the second concern is how do you make it available to less to other countries? So big change. I think it started and it will not stop.
And across the sectors that you serve, where do you see, as you look beyond this kind of current era of need, back to, I hate to say normal, Bernard, but whatever our world looks like post this pandemic, are there sectors that you're eyeing most closely as those that will be the rapid adopters that have really, is it healthcare, or are there others that you think are poised to really move into this kind of virtualization, this sort of twinning? And as you say, this is the sustainability conversation as well. There may be those that are looking at that because that will be necessary to be efficient.
Yeah, if we think about the post-pandemic, I think the world is also, and maybe pandemic has accelerated this awareness, understanding the seriousness of what sustainability issues are. That topic is not only about counting CO2 emission, it's about changing the way we deliver product and services to humanity, and making a bill between what you take and what you give to provide those products and services to people on the planet. there is no industry in the world where that bill is known. There is no industry in the world that can confirm and prove to you that they know what they take from Mother Planet versus what they give for human on that planet. This has to change. So, of course, there are obvious parameters, CO2, on other things, but we know it's just the beginning of a much more profound transition, which is about understanding the reality of the decision we make when we provide products and services to people, and what is the impact on the planet. That driver by itself, on alone, is, in my view, going to massively accelerate what I call the what if, what I call the evaluation of things before you actually do the thing. You know, I have an example. Airplanes today, they don't take off by accident. You know that you are going to go from A to B in a safe way, and I put aside certain unfortunate accident, but globally over the last 30 years, it has been one of the most reliable transportation way of transportation by far. So it's what is happening is modeling and simulation has played a role there to master everything that could happen in. It has not been applied to all sectors of the economy. So I believe that that dynamic, to have a more visible bill, what I call the eco bill, between what you take and what you give, is going to give to citizens the arbitration to decide if they want to buy or not. And I think it's going to challenge the politicians to set up new conventions to really accelerate that transition that I believe is necessary for the world. So that single direction, I would say for us, it's an obsession. How can we contribute to help companies do that? Is going to have several impacts. First, disassemble current ecosystem on supply chain and reassemble them differently to be more frugal. And frugality is about impact on the planet in that context. And how do you do that? If you cannot simulate and evaluate, there is no good reason that you will find a good solution at first. And it's too expensive to try all solutions. So modeling, simulation of this new way the world should be delivering product and services is an imperative in my mind.
Well, I want to hang on the supply chain question here, because there are many big themes there. And actually, as you're talking about that, I'm wondering if Dassault couldn't actually create a virtual twinned world that could model out the cost of delivering a good or service. In a way, policymakers will be trying to put in place the different levers. As you say, right now we have some of them. CO2 emissions is one. We'll need other ones. We'll need better measures of the totality of it. On the supply chain, there's a lot of focus on that at the moment because the pandemic really did show some of the friction points and the weaknesses. What's your hope when you say disassemble and reassemble? There's a profound amount of change in that. There's sort of political implications. There are personal business implications. What's your vision of that, to disassemble and reassemble?
Yeah, it's an important topic indeed, because it connects several factors: the social factor, the economical factor, and the sovereignty factor of countries. So it's a coupling where this coupling is not going to be solved just by companies deciding to do something. There will be connection between regulators, new rules, new convention, even for the commerce and the business to happen. And also the way you measure science-based sustainability is a serious topic, and it must be science-based. You know, science is a value from that standpoint. It's not an obstacle; it's a value. We have to rationalize things because too many of the decisions today on sustainability are done on emotion as opposed to science-based. Look at the debate on vaccine in certain countries where people have the vaccine and don't want to be vaccinated. And in other countries, they do not have the vaccine and they cry because they don't have the vaccine, which is a social problem. It's not only a political problem, it's a social problem, a awareness problem. I think that the supply chain will evolve massively because in some way it has been driven up to now by only cost. That cannot be the only factor. I think it's the total value. It's what do you take versus the value you bring in this supply chain becoming a value chain, a true value chain. There is a lot of waste too. I mean, the beauty of certain platforms in retail, for example, we can have a lot of debates on different aspects, the social aspect and so on, but the reality, it has removed so much waste in many cases. So I think that will be a driver. The second thing is that the countries are coming to the realization that interdependencies, the globalization has limits, and that they need to understand what are the interdependencies better. I don't see this as a negative thing. I see that I think it's a positive thing. You remember some of our developed countries were delegating certain chemistry transformation that were very dirty to the planet in other countries. This must stop. We have to think, and this was done just because of cost and because of, putting the risk somewhere else. Let's be more transparent on this. Let's be more scientific on this, and let's measure it. And then what you do is you enforce new economical model to be established that are going to be cleaner to the planet and better for the people. So I think this is, in my view of the world, the 21st century. What is going to be happening in the rest of this century is probably similar to what did happen with the energy at the end of the 19th century, as profound as that. If you think about the effect of energy at the end of the 19th century that makes our economy of the 20th century, I believe what is happening now is the sustainability imperative and the reconsideration of what we do and how we provide service to one product to people has to be profoundly reviewed to make this planet more sustainable. And I think the social pressure will increase.
And that is, of course, also a political story. It'll be a story for citizens. Business leaders often do not want to talk too much to the politics or to their political leadership. But in the context of where we stand, I'm curious, just as an industrial leader, you look around the world at the OECD countries, and they are burdened with great debt as we emerge from this pandemic. And that will, of course, shape their priorities and the ability to tackle initiatives. On the other hand, we have many, many businesses that have more cash than they've ever had. Yeah. How do you see those two things fitting together? What's the tension between them? And what will the role of business be in the future?
Yeah, I think Europe on this side has been doing a lot with new type of regulation to really enforce some of the transition to happen faster. I see, to give you a concrete example, I see today a big debate in the mobility sector. It's a worldwide question. As we have a big debate on the energy sector. Is nuclear a good transitional energy, or should we forget it? I think Germany demonstrated that it was bad to stop nuclear, and they have polluted more the world without nuclear than with nuclear. So in my mind, for example, nuclear is maybe a one-century transition, energy transition, but not a political mandate transition. It's not a 4 or 5 years transition. It's a 50 to 100 years transition. So the cycle of the decisions are not the same, and they need to be integrated that way. A second illustration is on the sector of mobility, as I said. Let's take a very precise example. There is a big debate today about the value of hybrid vehicles. not only fully electric, but hybrid. Why hybrid? Because the electrification on the infrastructure is not ready. So there is a big debate where the regulator is saying, well, you lie with hybrid vehicle because they consume far more than in our test cases. Mm-hmm. There are solutions for that. We could imagine that we trace anonymously the use of the vehicle to have a bill of how it's used with the electric battery versus engines. This could be established as a rule. So we see that the regulator can help transition. But today, for example, in Europe, there is a big debate in that question to say, when do we ask to stop hybrid vehicle? Is it 2030, 2035? Mm-hmm. Maybe that's not the right question. Maybe the right question is, can we provide, can we inform consumers, users, so they have the report of how they use their vehicle or how they should use it in a way that reduced by 50% at the beginning and then 60% the impact on CO2. So it's a simple story with a gigantic impact on the transition of the energy, of this economy, which is gigantic, on our direct life. The same is happening in life science. The same is happening in air transportation. We think that, of course, hydrogen might play a role here, but I think there are multiple steps that could be envisioned. It has also an impact on the logistic of the world because it costs a lot to transport goods. So science-based is useful. And I think the connection between understanding of us as citizens, as patient, or as consumers about having higher visibility when we decide to buy something or use something about what is the effect would help a lot. So let's increase that influence from human to enforce the system to be better.
When we think about the future of industries, as you mentioned, there are great transformational forces. And we do, historically, you often see out of a period of huge challenge, a leap ahead in something, a great advance. What is your sense coming out of this period of what that will be? And what it might be or what you hope it will be?
Well, in life science, it's clear. If you look at the progress in life science in the last 40 years, the side of the aspirin, it has been massive money for little progress. And that, all of a sudden, due to the pandemic, the biotech who have been working, not last year, but for the last 10, 15 years, on taking the risk, some of them have revealed that new type of approach, mRNA and others, could totally revolutionize oncology, vaccine, and other domains. Would this acceleration had happened without the pandemic? I am not sure. That's a concrete example where I think in life science and healthcare, things are going to evolve faster, hopefully. It's needed. For a rare disease, the same case, oncology, number one or number two reason for death. Mistakes in surgery is at the top of the risk. People don't talk about it, but it's on the top risk. It's a several magnitude order higher risk than taking a flight on an airplane. So this is on that side. On the other side of manufacturing, I think material science and biology will change everything. I am convinced that we need to invent new materials. We need to proceed with a new type of processes. They have been stable over the last 50 years. Very little evolution, only cost reduction. We need to change the game. So that's the second avenue, what I call material science and biology. And in terms of infrastructure, where we live, your building, your house, the infrastructure. we have to be more frugal. We have to probably move from an economy of owning things to an economy of sharing things. If you look at products that are owned by families, do we need all of them? I'm not sure. My new children, my 5 children, they have a different view of using a car. They are okay to lease a car, to use it temporarily, and to take the right model for their weekend versus what they need to do in the week. So this is evolving slowly, but it has huge impact. And I believe that we are not anymore in a product economy. We are in what I call an experience economy. The value of usage is higher than the value of the product itself. If you evaluate all the products you use for the value of the usage, you will not use the same product every day. So that consciousness is having a big impact. And I believe, I think it in a positive way, frankly speaking, because in some way the pandemic has accelerated the people awareness around the world that it's a fragile world, not only a world where you can get everything you want. It's a world that we need to take care about and take care of. So I've been transforming the industry for virtualization for 40 years. We started with planes, satellites, and cars, and I think we're going to do it in healthcare, and I think it's an important thing to do.
It is a complex time, and hearing you speak is also one where there's a lot to be optimistic about, despite all of our challenges. We are out of time, but it is great to have you with us, and we do appreciate your insights today, Bernard. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Great pleasure.